Hello everyone, in this video I will review this exterior project that I did using 3ds Max and Corona Render, and I will show you how I went from this to this. You can also download this scene and many more in my Patreon account. So let's start. On my left side you can see all of the layers and we will go over them step by step. On my default layer I usually keep only my cameras, but for now it's hidden because we will discuss it later in the video. Then let's open the house layer. That's where I keep my main exterior model. There is nothing much to discuss in terms of the modeling here because it's very simple. I just added some interior elements that I downloaded from the internet. Usually I like to set up my camera right away after my exterior model is completed. I do it using the perspective view and using the script image composition helper. Once I'm happy with my view, I go to Corona Render tab and press this camera button. This creates a camera from view. Since I already have my camera, I will just select it. For exterior renders, you want your field of view to be pretty high. In my case, it's set to 70. I also turned on automatic vertical tilt so that my perspective is not distorted. All the other settings are set to default. Now let's unhide our ground layer. Here you can see that it's just a plane with some modifiers applied to it. First I created a plane with some segments, then I added Edit Poly modifier, went to my ribbon tool, Freeform, Paint Deform. Here you can see a bunch of sculpting brushes. I chose Push and Pull brush and sculpted the ground so it looks uneven. Then I added Displace modifier, adjusted the strength and decay parameters, and added a simple dirt map. You can see how it looks like. The bright parts of the map is pulling polygons up and dark ones push them down. I added a turbo smooth and a UVW map modifier on top. And this is how our ground looks like from the camera view. After my base was ready, I added HDRI map to my scene. If we open Render Setup, Scene and go down to Scene Environment, you can see my HDRI map here. And this is how it looks like. I tried many maps, but I like this one the most. I didn't change anything and left it at default. After that, I rendered my image, and this was the result. Now let's talk about the most interesting and difficult part of the project, which is vegetation. Firstly, let's open our grass layer. Here you can see how my grass and plants look like. First, I downloaded all the models that I needed for my vegetation from Chaos Cosmos browser. You can do it by navigating to Corona Render tab and press this button. This will open a Chaos browser. I used Chaos Scatter to scatter all the vegetation in my scene. You can create it by going to Corona Render tab and press Create Chaos Scatter button. I used total of 5 scatters for the grass. Let's start with the first one and hide the rest for now. This is my main grass. Here I selected the objects where I want to distribute my grass, and here I selected all of my main grass. Then in surface scattering I added a custom map. That means that the bright part of the map is where our grass will be distributed and the dark part is where it won't be. This will add a natural variation to our scatter. Here I adjusted the count to 200,000 pieces. Then in transformations I added a variation to the grass rotation. That means that each grass will be rotated differently from 0 to 360 degrees randomly, which will also give us a natural variation. And in the Scale tab I also adjusted the variation from 80% to 150. Plus I added a dirt map that looks like this. This will also give even more variety to the grass scale. Now let's talk about the splines. If I open my splines layer, you can see that I have a bunch of splines here. I need them to tell my scatter where I want or don't want my grass to be. In the Area tab of my scatter, I can choose the splines where my grass won't be scattered. For example, here is the rectangle spline. I placed it where my house is supposed to be so that my grass won't be scattered here. Here in the exclude options, you can set up the fall off by adjusting these parameters such as near, far, scale, and density. Same thing with other splines. All the other parameters were set to default. Scattering grass and trees is all about trying different settings and combinations. This was the result after I scattered my main grass. Now let's talk about our first set of plants. Same thing here. I selected my ground as the main target for distribution, and here we have our plants. Then in the surface scattering, I added a black and white map and set the count to 500. For the transformations, I also adjusted the rotation and scale, but with different settings. And also added splines where I want to exclude my scattering. And again, it's all about trying different settings. I did the same things with the rest of the grass scatters, just added different maps and used different settings. And after many tries, this was the result. Now let's talk about our trees. Let's hide the grass layer for now and unhide the trees layer. First, I planted the bushes, so let's hide our trees layer scatter and some other trees. You can see that I have two bush scatters, and I use the same logic for both of them as for the grass scatter. The only difference is that I used my circle splines as my distribution target. That means that my bushes will be distributed only inside of my circle splines. These two scatter use the same instanced bush models that are just different in sizes. I also planted some of the bushes manually, like this, just where I wanted them to be. Same thing did with the tree trunk. And if we go to the camera view, you can see that it all balances and complements each other. This was the result after I rendered it all with the grass. Now let's unhide the rest of the trees. You can see that some of the trees show as a wired box and others show as a full mesh. That's because these trees were also placed manually. Let's hide our bushes for now. In my trees scatter, you can see that I used both ground and a rectangle as my distribution target. As for models, I used 4 types of different trees that I also downloaded from Cosmos browser. I didn't use any maps for scattering. I only adjusted the rotation and scale parameters. And as for the area, I used 3 splines where I wanted my trees to be placed, which is at the back and on the sides of my house. And I also added rectangle spline to exclude placement on my house. After many tries, this was the result. Now that I was finished with vegetation, I placed corona lights inside of my house. I adjusted the brightness and temperature and turned off all the visibility. In my render setup, I excluded glass from material override and rendered image one more time. I will not be talking about materials in this video, because all the materials that I used for the house were pretty basic, mostly simple wood and metal, and all the other models like vegetation came with the existing materials. As for the render setup, I adjusted the image resolution, pressed setup light mix, that would allow me to control the lights in the frame buffer, turned off the material override and turned on Corona high quality denoising. I also added a C-masking wire color to my render elements. This will let me manipulate the parameters such as color, brightness, and other things of each element in Photoshop. To do so, just press Add and choose the C-masking wire color. After that, I rendered my image in 4K resolution and saved it as a PNG format. Now let's talk about the post-production process. I opened my rendered image in Photoshop. This is how it looked like straight from the frame buffer. On the right side, you can see all of my adjustment layers. Let's go through them step by step. First, I imported my wire mask image that I added to render elements. If we turn it on, then go to Select, Color Range, we can now select any color and element in our image. Hide the mask. Now we can apply an adjustment layer to our selection. Using this logic, I adjusted all the elements in my image. First, let's see the adjustments for the grass. I added color balance, levels, adjusted the color and saturation. Then grouped all the layers together. This is how it looked before and after. Did the same thing to the grass under the house and to the rest of the elements. After that, I added more adjustment layers, but this time to the whole image. Added exposure, color balance, selective color, hue saturation, another hue saturation, and more hue saturation. After that, I duplicated my background layer and applied camera raw filter. Here you can adjust some things like exposure, color, and many more. So this is the final result. You can download this scene and many more in my Patreon account. I hope you liked this video, please like and subscribe, this will mean so much for me. Thanks.